Welcome back to the news, everyone. We've got a very interesting story today because Activision Blizzard is kind of getting brutalized. Now, this will be one of the last quarters that I think we see Blizzard's numbers just fall and fall and fall, and the struggle that they're seeing just be so great by the numbers. But certainly for Activision, well, they're being forced to admit some pretty rough things because a third of their users are gone over a year. It's quite wild. So, to get into things, it's just time to go. Here's the core thing, right? They're down like 25% in terms of in-game net bookings. Their yearly revenue is down decently significantly from last year. They have a combined 372 million monthly active users. Of course, we maybe remember the point in time where they were boasting they had over 500 million monthly active users.
Yeah, all the way back in 2016, I believe.
Yep.
Insane.
And that has evidently fallen tremendously. Now, we had slightly less info than usual because there basically wasn't a call with, Bobby and everybody. Apparently, that's a customary thing when, they're in the midst of an acquisition. But basically, they said that, look, lower Call of Duty results and product timing for Blizzard are the problem, but that King actually had some decent growth. They talked about growing their developer headcount by several hundred people in the first quarter. That is primarily, we believe, for the Call of Duty franchise.
Yep.
It is worth noting, though, that it does seem like Blizzard have been hiring up as well.
Yeah, they're not shy about spending all the money they have, thankfully.
Yeah. And they absolutely need to if they want to actually pull this stuff off. Now, for some other sort of rough numbers, console revenue down 39%, PC revenue down 38%, mobile revenue up 10%. That's nowhere near enough to offset that, is it?
Hey, good job, King. Well done.
Yeah.
You're the only one making a lot of money.
And then even in their other category, which is basically just distribution, esports, that kind of thing, even that was down 22%.
Yep.
So across the board, it's rough. And when you go to the operating income stuff, like Blizzard's profit, 53 million. Activision's profit, 59 million.
Peanuts.
Yeah, like that's a lot of money, absolutely, yes. But compared to what you'd think these companies would be making, it's really rough. And if you actually look at things, the segment net revenue for Blizzard, 274 million. Operating income, 53 million. Segment revenue for Activision Blizzard, 453 million. Operating income, 59 million. I think that really shows you how expensive it is to, run Activision.
Yep. And
wow.
Yeah, and that's the thing where, it's especially when you look at, how profit works when you're in this industry. It's like, if you get all that good in-game revenue, all those net bookings, all that stuff, it's basically free money without having to, have a huge cost for it. Then you kind of expect it to be, okay, low amount of money spent and then just free money forever. But they have to put so much money in development headcount to try and get content out that it's that they're at the break point where every bit of money they could make is just not appearing for them. And they're spending so much to get almost nothing in return. They're like, shit.
Yeah, nothing in return right now. So a lot of this is just developers working on things that have not came out yet, which is going to make these numbers be a little bit rough. So, I do see these numbers as a few things being a little bit of a miss, and then just development and things that haven't been released yet. But it is interesting when you look at King, 682 million segment revenue, 243 million operating income.
Yep. That is both much a higher ratio of revenue to profit, and also that's more than double the other two combined.
Yeah,
which is completely. King is basically footing all the bills for everyone right now.
Yeah, that King acquisition was a good move.
Absolutely.
By the numbers. Now, when we get into Blizzard specifically, well, it's quite funny. They say the lower results primarily reflect product cycle timing for the Warcraft franchise. Now, that is really strange because by Q1 in a year, there's never a major release other than the final patch of an expansion in an expansion's second year of life. That is what hits patch 8.3 of Battle for Azeroth and patch 9.2, because there was one last patch, of Shadowlands. So this doesn't make much sense to me, because this is the norm. This is the norm for this period of time. Now, could that potentially mean that patch 9.2 of World of Warcraft didn't do a great job pulling people back in because Shadowlands was already struggling a lot? Yeah, well, perhaps.
Yeah, we've got the MAU numbers to prove it. It went down a little bit. It should be going up with a patch. It's not.
Yeah. Now that obviously that could be Overwatch falling over. Yeah. It could be other things. Still is rough.
Yeah, it's you don't want to release content and have your numbers still go down basically, and that's why like they would like talk about patch releases and stuff, and this time they haven't. Obviously, they didn't have a call to go into death, but it was still just like, yeah, product cycle timing. That's just not mentioned. We did release content. Shit. Okay.
Yeah, and that's strange because I think an investor looking at this will be like, oh, product cycle timing. Fair enough.
Yeah, makes sense.
To somebody who actually knows the product cycle timing of World of Warcraft,
Yeah.
that's not an excuse because this current period is completely normal. So that is like a little bit worrying to me. Now, that said, they're going to have a lot of change. They've got loads of products coming out, and I think these are products that, at least per the MAUs, are going to have a massive impact. So Diablo Immortal, of course, is coming out in June, along with an open beta on PC. That has 30 million pre-registrations, and that was before the PC announcement. So I imagine PC will drive that up. We already know that Diablo has a very strong draw on PC and console. I mean, yeah, Diablo 3 is still played, but also Diablo 2 Resurrected performed so well that their servers fell over.
Yeah. Also, one thing is obviously it's free to play as well.
Yeah.
Which means you're going to have, you see all of the massive numbers for free to play games getting tons of people in. It'll be the same here where people go, I'll give it a try. And then that's an MAU, so they get to say, we're back up to 80 million MAUs. We did it, everyone.
Yeah.
Good job.
It'll be precisely like what Call of Duty Mobile
Yeah.
helped Activision do. So we got that. Then, of course, Overwatch 2 is going to have its open beta at some point. We've got Wrath of the Lich King Classic, which we believe is going to be maybe September timing. That's what would make sense. But basically Q3 this year. So that will be a decently major World of Warcraft product. Of course, got to point out, Wrath of the Lich King is when WoW is at its highest subscribers. Massive cultural appeal. A lot of people who still play the game in these days, or perhaps quit over the last few years, a lot of them, they're not the players who are playing classic private servers. So I think that Wrath will be able to engage the modern Warcraft audience a hell of a lot more.
Yeah, especially because it's kind of when modern Warcraft kind of started in a little bit of a way, like gameplay-wise. So it's like the parts of Classic that are difficult to approach will kind of go away with Wrath being so much more approachable in that sense.
Now, speaking of product cycle timing, Dragonflight.
Yep.
Our expectation is Q1 2023. I think internally they would love to hit Q4 2022. That would basically keep the 2-year cycle that they've had going since, ages, but it used to be like every August, and then, of course, things went a bit screwy with Shadowlands. It would have kept that going, but I think a slip into Q1 2023 is possible. That said, in some of those interviews, the developers have said the expansion's actually quite far along, and, alpha and beta testing was, I think, talked about such you could maybe expect that to be 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah.
More than, rather than, say, 3 months.
Yeah, for sure.
So that will be interesting. Now, another thing that's going to make their MAUs explode is the Warcraft mobile game, which is going to be announced in May. Now, we don't know anything about that, other than they did say that it would be in players' hands in 2022. What does that mean? That could mean at a convention. That could mean as a beta or soft launch in a specific territory. Often what they do for these mobile games is they soft launch them in a territory like, say, Australia, that, it's smaller market than, say, the USA, but I think, like, consumer behavior is, like, kind of similar, so they like to soft launch things in Australia to see how they'll go in NA, so maybe they'll do something like that. Really hard to say. Or maybe it is more akin to a traditional game that doesn't need as much of that, like, super heavy, monetization, refining soft launch stuff. So maybe they will just have a game to say, hey, this is coming out in a few months. There you go.
Yeah, I think from a Blizzard perspective, that would be really, really cool, and that would be very nice to just say, hey, here's a pretty cool action game for Warcraft on mobile. But I imagine, given how King is carrying everything, I imagine everyone is looking to the classmate checking it. I was like, what's King doing over there? Ooh, we need some of that. That's bringing them 2-3 times as much profit as we have. Can we have that? And that's kind of the problem, but yeah.
And man, that's people buying power-ups and Candy Crush.
Yeah.
And stuff. Like, what the hell, man? It's wild. So there's that. Now, let's talk about MAUs. They're brutal. They are brutal. So they are actually the lowest that Blizzard have ever reported. You may see 21 million on that chart. That's just extrapolating from the first time they ever reported, which is 26 million. So they have lost 5 million MAUs in the last year. They've lost 2 million in the last 3 months.
Despite a Warcraft patch?
Yeah. So basically Q1 of this year was that loss in 2 million.
Yeah.
Even though we've got a WoW patch, I guess Overwatch has had things to talk about, but it hasn't really had gameplay.
Yeah.
It's just in general been quiet. And you really would have thought that with a World of Warcraft patch that they at least would have been able to stabilize, but man, no. So it's bad. This is actually lower than this is pre-Overwatch stuff that we're dealing with here. In fact, shortly after Warlords of Draenor came out, so even shortly actually, because that was late 14.
Yeah,
that makes me feel really old.
Almost 8 years ago.
But if you look at this, like Q1 2015, that's the earliest we can get, because they said that the 26 million was, a whatever percentage increase.
23% increase.
Yeah, 23% year over year. So we can extrapolate 21 million for Q1 2015. At that point in time, I mean, Warlords of Draenor had its month-long honeymoon period. People started to realize all the issues with the game. Sounds similar to Shadowlands. Some of the lack of content, some of those issues. Sentiment starts to get really, really low for World of Warcraft at this stage. Guilds like mine start to have roster struggles, and Overwatch doesn't exist. Yep. So, that is how rough things are at Team Blizzard's Q1 2015. Yeah,
I think the only thing that was kind of keeping them propped up there was likely Hearthstone. Because Hearthstone was 2014, I think, as well, around that time.
Yep, so this is still when Hearthstone is in, I was playing it regularly. It was very much the popular thing. Yeah. So that they're back to those numbers, that is spooky. But for MAUs being spooky, I mean, we just do have to talk about the obvious with Activision. So Activision's MAUs, they, if you look at this, right? March 31st, 2021, 150 million.
It's a lot of players.
March 31st, 2022, 100 million.
That's a bit less.
That's a third less.
Yep.
Sure made the numbers easy on us.
Which is actually interesting considering they're down 40%, around 40% in console and PC revenue. But they've lost a third of their players, which implies that so much more of that is actually the console and PC base than just the mobile base.
Yeah, and it's fascinating when you look at the number, right? When you look at them decrease, because you don't see it spike up for the new Call of Duty game. And I know Vanguard underperformed, but for there not to be a spike up is really something.
Well, I think that's maybe some of the problem of how they're trying to design all these live services that blend into each other, where maybe there's a lot of people who are happy playing Cold War, and then they're like, okay, well, I'm enjoying this, okay. Oh, the new one's out. I'll go play it. I don't like it. I'm not playing it. And that's a thing where they end up replacing their existing live service in a way with a new one. And if that's not better, then they just kind of have players go, well, no Call of Duty, because I'm not going to play the old one. So
yeah. So basically, Vanguard sold worse than Cold War. Yep. We believe decently, significantly worse.
It seems it's been bad enough for the entire company to kind of go a little bit into this,
shit.
The basket we've got all our eggs in, the bottom's starting to break. Oh shit, fix this now.
Yeah. And of course, Vanguard's tied into Warzone. And that means that issues with Vanguard will kind of drag Warzone down. Yep. Warzone already, I remember I was playing Black Ops Cold War a little bit when that came out. And just seeing what the Warzone people were saying, there was issues in integrating the guns. Timelines were really messy. It still had all of its cheating and its bugs and its issues. So I think that's a community that was already quite frustrated at some aspects of the quality of the service.
Especially with better alternatives on the market.
Yeah. And then Vanguard just doesn't do it. And I think that's just going to drive a lot of people away. And evidently it has. Now, they do say the development on Modern Warfare 2... That's, the second Modern Warfare 2 that they've done, not to be confused with Modern Warfare 2 Remastered. So I guess technically it's the third Modern Warfare 2. But it's not been fully announced. It's almost certainly going to be announced very soon. But they say the development on that and the new Warzone is going very well. Perhaps it is the case that just the people who did Modern Warfare 2019 are siloed off in Infinity Ward and allowed to do their thing. Yeah. What we do know, though, is that there's not going to be a traditional premium Call of Duty release in 2023. They're taking that year off. Perhaps you were saying a zombies product is going to fill the void, but very much it seems to be them realizing we can't have dud years anymore. The market is too competitive for a Call of Duty Ghosts to come out and be unpunished.
Yeah, everyone is absolutely really hungry for all of that market, and I think especially when when Apex does extremely well and now Respawn are a major player under EA, it's what if they release something? Obviously, Activision will have intimate knowledge of that through insiders and stuff, I'm sure. But it's you don't want Respawn to say, hey, you liked Apex? Here's a Call of Duty competitor. Because that would, obviously that's already competing with Warzone really heavily. But if that's a boxed version, then suddenly that is an absolute bloodbath of a market.
Yeah. this is certainly, man, they are really lucky the Battlefield has screwed up so much.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
So it's brutal. Now, they are staffing up like crazy. That's the thing we saw. Even pulling all of their studios over to this product line, I suppose, they weren't really able to come up with the goods. From what we understand, Ghost War? That doesn't exist. Cold War was basically kind of pulled together super quick and had issues. Like, it's not even in the same engine. It's Modern Warfare 2019. And then Vanguard. I mean, for Vanguard, we had all of those, was it the Gaming Revolution?
Yeah.
All those, leaks about how this game is really just struggling and having issues. And I think it does come out as just it's like, hey, here's another slice of Call of Duty. I don't think there was really much. There ended up not being much of a draw for people.
Yeah, I think that's why at other times they've talked about like the groundbreaking innovations is coming with the Warzone sequel and stuff like that. So I think that's the thing they know they need to actually hit the market hard, and they can't like kind of rest on their laurels a little bit, which they've very clearly been doing.
Yeah, I feel like they know what they need to do, and they are doing that and working in that, but we are just seeing that. We're just seeing that point where the numbers are naturally going to dip to their lowest. As for King, though, freaking brilliant, man. Yes, sell those Candy Crush power-ups and stuff. It's doing super great for King. Let's have a look at their monthly active users. Oh, basically flat. I mean, technically down 8 million year over year, but you can see, it kind of decreases from 258 down to 240, but then they're able to pick up another 10 million. But I don't really understand how the mobile market works that much. I don't really care. What we do know, though, is they're not in decline. They're producing awesome revenues. It's a big success.
Yeah, they talk about, I think it's like 8% growth in Candy Crush revenue and like double digit for the franchise and double digit overall at King. And I'm just like, that's going to be their, like, that's almost their golden goose, and they're going to try to emulate that, I think, with their mobile stuff. They get to see, because what I noticed was what they said specifically was they were turning more players into pairs through their optimization of the like in-game economy in Candy Crush, and that is all just bad news as far as I'm concerned.
That sounds ghastly.
Yeah, that's just, hey, we've finessed our psychological techniques to get you to spend money in our video games.
Yeah,
great news, which it is business wise, but
because in Candy Crush, it's just progressing and progressing and progressing, it's sort of into the next level. I then worry that for a Diablo Immortal, because that's even being built as an MMO. Like, how many people in Lost Ark can't keep up with their friends, so they buy the crafting mats they need for like honing and stuff.
Exactly.
So they don't have to do the farming. That's the sort of thing that starts to worry me.
Yeah.
Now, it is also the thing where Diablo Immortal does seem to be a humongous slice of game, literally for free. It's just how big is that in-game store and progression asterisks. We don't know right now. There's been rumbly reports from the beta. Blizzard have said that they're easing things up from what was in the beta. But really, I think we're only going to get a good handle on that once we're actually in that game, playing characters that we would vaguely care about. Yeah. It's like testing monetization in open beta. It's like, that's not people's characters. They don't care.
Yeah, of course.
So there you go. That's the situation for Activision Blizzard. Essentially, they have a bunch of medium to long-term plans. Maybe a year ago, those were all long-term plans. Now they are actually getting closer to really being a thing. I think we're going to see a large reversal in loads of these numbers.
Yeah, I feel like from a business perspective, it's just going to be up and up and up from here on out. Hopefully that's through like good products, and hopefully it's not just through, not fudging numbers literally, but playing those number games with, hey, we've got loads of mobile MAUs, so we're kind of obfuscating our actual real performance in the way that, we care about as users of like console and PC and stuff. That's kind of one of the things of this stuff where they'll just start to hide all those numbers kind of by design, but hopefully it actually does just come with like was the Blizzard said the period of planned substantial releases. Hopefully that means that Diablo Immortal's good, Overwatch 2 is good, and PvP this year. Hopefully they'll handle like the next World of Warcraft expansion good, and everyone's like, okay, we're still not super trustful, but we're happy enough with good content. Hopefully that's what they can do, instead of just going, we'll just release mobile games and monetize them.
Yeah, absolutely. So, look, only time will tell. We'll just have to wait and see. I guess the next thing will be the Warcraft mobile game. So I'm very, very keen to find out what that looks like. Anyway, that's it for us. See you next time.